Hello and welcome to week 16, our final week here in Ad PR Account Management J364 Online. Of course, as always, I'm your instructor, Michael Betker. Let's get crack-a-lackin'. So here's what's going on this week and what I want to talk about. Just want to wrap up on everything. Obviously, we'll talk about the resume assignment, which is due technically tonight. And then quickly want to go over the final exam review guide, which is also in Canvas. And then we'll get into a short lecture regarding what it's called The Truth in Cliches. And essentially, along the way, we'll also talk about new rules in the digital age. And then the last thing I want to talk about quickly is just the creative presentation prep, which is due on Wednesday this coming week, Wednesday, May 6th at midnight. So we'll talk about that as well. This is a snapshot of week 16 here. So this week we're learning just basically, we're working mostly on our creative presentations. So we'll touch on that at the end here. You'll want to review some of the creative presentations from past students, which I put into the to Canvas. So you'll see some of those examples there. I'd say credible examples of a couple different students. Really, just to give a quick down and dirty on that, you've been studying a brand all semester. And you've been doing research on that brand, and you've done projects to support that brand. You've done a creative brief, you've done a bunch of things in support of that. Now it's the time to take all that sum total of information you've learned about your brand and bring that back into a respectable pitch. You're not making any new ads. Basically, you're looking at past history of your brand or your product or your company, and you're going to make those your own. In other words, you're going to pretend that your agency came up with those based on your research about the brand. So toward that end, I'd like you guys to stay in character, right? You're the account person, so I'd like you to be the account person and get into character. And if you want to give your agency a name, you can do that if that helps. But you will lose points if you slip out of character for any reason. So I would like you to play along here and make a pitch. So this is kind of good practice, I think, for us. The other thing, too, is obviously a lot of you guys are going to be picking videos. So it's important for you guys to kind of get down your transitions and how you do that. I would lay that out within the context of your presentations themselves and make sure your mic's turned up enough so people can see it. Make that one big presentation. So, and then you want to publish that to Canvas. Today we'll talk about the exam study guide, and that's pretty much it for this week. All right. Final exams are due, by the way, will happen on May 11th, Monday. All right, here's the resume. That's the thing that's due today. Big thing here is I had a question asking me if they could, if it had to be within communication, specifically ad or PR and or account or anything like that. I would say anything related to our industry loosely. So any communication job, but specifically looking for account folks, PR and advertising, or maybe you want to be a copywriter or maybe a designer. Certainly all of those. But I would say is what's your current state thinking about your career, where you want to go? That's what you want to pick. As long as it's within communication, it doesn't matter to me. And what you'll do then is you'll put that in there, and then the last thing I'll grade probably for the semester for you will be this. And the best part of that is I'll give you feedback on what I think you could do to change it and make it better. This is one of those assignments that has prescriptive value. In other words, it's something you'll use, hopefully, as a part of your outbound. You're looking for work. All right. Here is the study guide. I'm not going to go into great detail on this. It's not cumulative. It's these chapters here, 2, 3, 4, and 8. We're not hitting on the sweet spot at all. Any of the account management documents we've worked with, so all the assignments, you should understand what a conference report, branding overview, and how to present creative, all that stuff is fair game. All right, so that's the final exam study guide. Let me have any questions on that, but usually it's a combination of things. It's made up of short answer questions, sometimes multiple choice, but a fair amount of short answers. So let's talk about getting a job in communications. Here's some truths for you that I want to share with you quickly, and then we'll kind of wrap up today. What I learned working in communications. So here's some things I want to share with you. First, if you don't succeed, just want to let you know this, right? People get frustrated when they get out in the field and they start looking for work. It's not easy. You're not top of mind, right? They're thinking about 18 other things before they're thinking about your application, your resume. So you got to find ways to make your resume and your application stand out. And we'll talk about that more today. But know that it's going to be a bit of a dirge. You're going to have to be diligent. But eventually you stick with it. you'll reach your goal. Use every contact you have, like uncles, friends, parents, neighbors, etc. So that's the thing. If what you want is really a conversation, at least, versus just sending your resume out blanketly to people. So you want to get those conversations started and using those friends in different areas wherever possible. Like for me, for example, if I know somebody and you're looking to get a job there, I'll definitely weigh in for you. I'll do whatever I can, but use your instructors. Use anybody you know. If you really want your dream job, take a nightmare job while you're waiting. So I've bartended my whole life, and I've used that periodically. I still bartend part-time, and now that I'm a teacher, just to help pay some bills, and I enjoy bartending. But know that you'll have a fallback job until you find that dream job. And then like I said before, be patient, be persistent, and check ads every day. Make follow-up calls, and I'll say this again: say thank yous to those folks who give you the time. Expect the unexpected. So obviously this is more tactical, but when interviewing, make sure to find the place. And if you're not sure where you're going, also always helpful to at least arrive early, or if not, then if you got the time, go by and find out where it is and make a practice visit. See what it's like for the parking garages and things like that. So you just don't leave any stone unturned there. Find a bathroom nearby. Most corporate buildings have locked bathrooms, so make sure you take care of business before you get there. Another interesting thing, I've never actually had to use this, but I have made an emergency kit. So I've got a sewing kit, I've got mints, I've got a bunch of things in my little kit that I carry in my backpack when I go to important meetings. But things like toothpick or floss, Shout stain wipe or stain sticks are great to have. Invariably, if I'm drinking coffee, I'm probably going to spill it on my tie or whatever I happen to be wearing. So, a few other things there too. It is the law of interviewing that something bad will happen between the time you leave home and the time you arrive. So plan for the worst. First impressions last. Always have a good handshake, firm handshake as well. This goes for women as well. It's just because it's not gender specific, right? Give a firm handshake. Look them in the eye. Now, obviously, in the days of COVID, you might be doing an elbow bump or maybe a wave. Who knows? But if we ever get back to handshaking, who knows? Either way, whatever you do, if it's a wave, look them in the eyes and address them confidently. All right, here's the other thing for you guys. Now, I don't think this is much of a problem anymore. It used to be more of a concern for folks who fell within the millennial generation, but there was this sense, this idea, and maybe it was a bit of a cliche, but that millennials thought they were going to go right to the top, earn a six-figure salary the first couple years, and to just start out there. The reality is much different, I would say. And this is my generation, Gen X, has always kind of known that we would have to start small and grow our way up. And I think that Gen Z, which is mostly you guys, because we are your parents, Gen X is your parents, you may have a more of a realistic point of view on that. So that's my theory. Either way, be comfortable with paying your dues. Answer phones, file, get lunch, work twice as hard and twice as long as the next person. And eventually you're going to find things moving fast in an agency life, for sure. Because people I've known now that I've worked with here at school who are now in the field are already kind of moving their way up the ladder quickly, and just within a couple of years, like a year or two. So you can move really quickly if you are willing to do pretty much anything to be a part of it. I could just as easily put a picture of a guy up here who's dressed inappropriately for an interview. Just know this: you're not going out to the clubs when you meet with these folks for a job. They're on the side of conservative, even if you know it's a fun agency and they're really known for just letting their hair down. You want to kind of be the button-down person in that meeting as much as possible. So just dress appropriately, and then of course you want to take care of hygiene, personal hygiene. So taking a shower beforehand versus just covering yourself in cologne or whatever. And then of course don't smoke cigarettes before you go into the meeting. That's disruptive. The early bird gets the worm and the promotion. So get there before your boss and leave after your boss. This is, of course, assuming you already have achieved a job. It will be noticed. Always be early. If you're late to a meeting, it says you don't respect the other person's time. And we'll talk more about personal branding, which we've done a section on in this class already. But that really is a detriment to your personal brand if you always come late. And meet those deadlines or meet your fate as well. We are a deadline-driven business. Obviously, you got to get it done. And so a lot of times you'll find yourself working the 11th hour to get things in on time. Keep it clean. Kind of has a lot of different meanings to that, but don't lie. If I can't trust you, I don't want you to be around. And that is absolutely true. Don't swear. Now, I know swearing sometimes happens, and after a while, you get kind of comfortable. And I'm as guilty as anybody of that. But I would say this, especially early on, establish yourself as being professional. Swearing is a rare thing. It should be used judiciously, and it shouldn't be used at all in those early days, especially until you feel more comfortable with that. And even then, I would say just err on the side of caution there and try to find a better way. I would say swear words are really kind of going nuclear when you could use better words, especially if you're a copywriter, right? Don't steal. Sounds simple, but don't take office supplies. Don't just put stupid things on the web. They'll look at that. I can tell you right now, and we'll talk about making your own website and your own web presence. But know that things that are out there now are going to be out there. So, and I think most people understand that now, that employers do look at those things to get a sense of your character. And don't send personal emails from work. Companies do monitor that stuff, right? And even I would say if they give you a phone and you're still looking for work, err on the side of caution there. And if you're going to be using your phone, maybe at a break or something to, field other offers, I understand why you might do that. That said, don't give them any ammunition if you use their phone or their property to do that kind of stuff. Find your own time and do it on your own time. And I think that's acceptable. Don't poop where you eat. Keep your work life and your personal life separate. Now, that's obviously not as easy as it might seem when you consider agency life. You're working at an agency. It's a lot of young folks, a lot of single folks, and a lot of nightlife in most cases. Agencies have that sort of work hard, play hard mentality. And there are some that are not that way, I would say. But by and large, most of them, the ones that I've worked with in any capacity, have had that work hard, play hard mentality. But it's important for you to kind of keep those separate, your personal life and your work life. So ergo and therefore, dating coworkers is probably not a good idea generally. Because when the relationship ends, you got to see them. You still have to work with them on a day-to-day basis, and that can get really dicey and cause gossip. So dating superiors could get both of you fired, right? And getting drunk with coworkers is a very, very bad idea. And don't be an idiot at work parties. Here's an interesting one. Don't choose your battles. Sometimes it's worth fighting for, and sometimes it's not. Learn to tell the difference between the two. And this is something I learned the hard way in some cases, right? So I often felt very protective of creative ideas as a younger person, and really burned my paper when someone would just kind of pretty much liberally borrow or steal an idea. It didn't matter to me if it was somebody above me or below me. It made me mad equally, and I sometimes was not able to hold back on that. I would say, keep your cool in those situations as much as possible, and try to stay professional. And if it gets really bad, and sometimes it can happen, you be ready to just walk away as well. Take the high ground and step on out of there. Stepping out. Okay, so toward that end, don't burn bridges, right? No matter what happens. Even if it's someone you're pissed off about for stealing an idea you had or whatever it happens to be, stay positive. You never know when you might meet that person again in some capacity who may be above you. So if you've handled that kind of departure well, that's not going to be a detriment for you. Life isn't fair, and work is even worse. So, and I've learned this the hard way as well. I've had my share of run-ins. And as a manager, I try not to make those mistakes. But the people who deserve to be fired often don't get fired. They're usually related to the president of the company or some such, and you'll see that, right? You'll start seeing favorites, and not every company is that way. Lots of folks try to work on their culture and make sure that doesn't happen, but you're always going to find some varied ingredient of politics. If you work hard and do a great job, you will be rewarded with more work. That's often the case, right? So you do a good job and you're efficient, you'll find that they're going to keep loading stuff on you. So, which is good and bad, but ultimately, if they've done they've kept an eye on you and they've watched the work you've been doing and they like the work, that's going to lead to bigger things for you. So put your time in. You will work with liars, cheats, mean people, and worse. Learn how to deal with them as well. There's a great book that I've read called Cain and Abel at work. Cain and Abel, that helped me through some tough times. But know there are predators out there, folks who don't have your best interest in mind. And if you're a gullible person or somebody who's very trusting, you might be easily in the crosshairs of somebody who is looking to step all over you to get ahead. And that does happen. I'm kind of blindsided by folks who do this. And they are out there. Trust me. Discrimination in all forms exists. Be prepared so you can handle it appropriately. Know that that's alive and well as well. And women still don't make the same as men do in most cases. That is hopefully going to change at some point, but for now we still see that. There is bias out there and worse things. So men can get passed over because the company wants more women in management, or married women don't get hired because they're afraid to get pregnant. They'll get pregnant, and young people don't get promoted because the clients might not trust or respect them. So these are all things. And I would even add older folks, myself included. If I wanted to go and look for a job in an agency now, I might have some trouble because of my age. So ageism is another one to consider. You guys won't worry about that, but to thine own self be true. At some point, your ethics will be tested for sure. Know where you stand and stick to your guns. You will regret it deeply if you cave. If you are definitely opposed to people smoking cigarettes in general and just think that's a bad, healthy decision, and you have picked up, let's say, you're the account person for Philip Morris Company who's looking for your help to turn over a new leaf, quote unquote. But that just doesn't sit well with you. That's really a decision you have to make. But I would say you have that decision to make, and you can make that. You're in control of that decision. Work is good, but in the end, it's just your job. So true. No dying person ever said, "I wish I spent more time at work." Many have wished they spent more time with their loved ones. So work-life balance is important, and that's obviously early on in life you may forego some of that. Last slide here, and then we'll talk a bit about online portfolios. Love every minute. And this is something this is the reason why I'm still doing this, and I love teaching it. Working communication is awesome. It's so much fun. It's a lot of variety, a lot of different avenues and ways you can kind of couch your career and build and grow your career. It's just the sky's the limit, frankly. If you have desire and passion for the business, whether it's PR or advertising or any one of a number of different positions, you really have a lot of upward mobility. So a communication degree really has a lot of value, I think. Many days you can't even believe they pay you for what you do because you would probably do it for free. That's not how I feel when I'm writing copy and I'm on the hunt for a new campaign for a client. It's just my favorite thing to do. Time melts away when I'm doing that kind of work. Stay positive, appreciate your successes, make work enjoyable, and enjoy the ride. All right, so that's my nickel tour for you guys on things to think about as you wend your way toward graduation here and beyond. We'll talk a bit about online portfolios, why they are what they are, and why you need one. Well, you need one, and everybody needs one, I think, for a couple of reasons. You know, we talk about a resume, and you guys are working on your resumes now. Most folks who have an accompanying online portfolio of some kind, especially designers, but even I would say copywriters or anybody who's working in advertising, even PR, I would say any project work you've done, most employers like to see examples of work. So it's an easy way for them to look at your work before they meet you, and obviously put your best foot forward there. So it's a great way to do that. And we spend a lot of time looking at online content in addition to that. So you'll see that. And of course, the cool thing for you, if you've got a website of any kind, and we'll talk about how you do that, but you can see if somebody's looking at your website, and you can see how long they've been on there. So that's exciting as well. But either way, you know that that's a hit then for them. So the basics, right? It's a resume. It's an online resume of who you are, and they're on the rails now. Any self-respecting person can figure out how to set up a website these days. You don't have to know any coding. So first thing you want to do is kind of put your resume up there in an easy downloadable spot. And then your contact information and then the samples of your work are really the nuts and bolts of these portfolios. If you're a videographer, for example, you want to put a highlight reel up there. Use YouTube, and most of these pages now have opportunities for you to put video work up there if you wish. But samples of your work are important. Some examples, right? It's the reality of who you are. It's your proof that you exist and that you have done some things. Your online presence and global impression will also be factored in that as well. And frankly, if you're doing any kind of agency work, they're going to look at and see if you have any proficiency in digital generally. So that's gives you a leg up over anybody who doesn't have an online portfolio. It is like your pre-interview, like I said. If they don't like what they see, they aren't going to bring you in for an interview. So you want to do a good job. I've seen a lot of typos from different students working on these things. So make sure you eradicate those, have other people proof your work as much as possible, and always be refreshing and putting your best foot forward, your best work up front. We've talked about personal branding, right? So this is really a chance for you to showcase that, through photography and through your own personal style and your own copywriting. Even if you're a designer, writing good copy will show that you know and understand and appreciate what copy is and why it's important. But beyond that, of course, you want to tell them who you are, what's your personality type, and hopefully it's a good fit and good match for the personality of the agency. How are you different from other folks? And what about you is memorable? So this is a chance for you guys to really lay the foundations for that first conversation. Here's a few good examples. Like I said, there's a lot of templates out there. You can do that, and it's if you find the right design. Usually, if you got kind of an odd name, you'll find your URL, your .com out there for probably $7-8 for the URL, and then of course you have to manage the site. And you can mothball your site once you get a job if you wish. I've left mine up, but you can keep them up or turn them off when you get that special job. All right, let's talk about a design now. We're all designers when we make a website. Even if you're a copywriter, and if you're not a designer, really, you should still be focused on that. So here's some quick tips for you guys there. Just, simple is better. I would say white space is nice, especially if you're showing your work. Leave white space there, and too many colors can be distracting. That's the first point there. Same thing with too many fonts. Big bugaboo for me is if I see all kinds of different fonts within a page on either a resume or a website. So always be thinking clean design as much as possible. And of course, that picture down there is a person and his cat. I would say unless you're going for that sort of campy, humorous approach, I would err on the side of caution there and be more professional. But that said, this might be interesting to me because I think this is a funny picture. And if you intend to be funny, that's one thing. If you're doing it because you think it's a great picture, that's different. What to include? Writing samples. People want to read your stuff, right? So work hard on that. Now, you could take existing projects from your time here at Whitewater. I would say that if you got a B on it, make it an A. So there may be typos in there, but you want to fix any of those things before you publish. That goes true of anything you put out there, okay? Photos of events or works in action. So any WA students, I always encourage them to put pictures up of when they've managed any events or have done any work with clients. So all that stuff is fair game. Volunteer projects, relevant papers, anything that you think is relevant to the position at hand. And it's going to be a work in progress, right? You're always going to be adding and changing and removing and putting new things in there. Simple organization, common sectors are about me, your resume, work samples, and how to contact you are the basics there. You could also add a blog. You could also talk about other skill sets and interests, and then any other social media sites you happen to be on. Here are some of the hosting sites you can think about: Weebly, WordPress, Squarespace. Of course, Wix has a general basic page, brochure page. Carbon Made and Behance are a few others. There's a bunch of other ones out there as well. So shop around there, but strongly encourage you to do that. Some final tips for success here. Quality over quantity, right? So put your best stuff out there, and if you got 8 to 12 solid pieces, that's good. Let's say you only have 4. Put your best 4 out there. I mentioned this already, but a work in progress, so it's always going to be something you'll kind of tweak and include and update as you move from position to position, and sometimes you might even move from company to company. Either way, it's good to have keep a tab on that and cultivate it like a garden. Include samples of the work you want to do. Sometimes you might want to do some spec work and show some work that you're passionate. Let's say you're passionate about snowboarding, and you really want to become a marketer for companies that sell snowboards. Do some spec work there and show them what you can do. Keep it professional in look and content, right? We talked about that already. Make sure it works for mobile and tablet. So we look what's called responsive design. Most of these templates are automatically built that way now, so don't have to worry about that. But make sure you don't have to scroll or pinch and roll to get the content visible within a tablet or a mobile phone. Test all those links, and then, of course, start today. You'd be surprised how much you can get done in a day with these things, with a couple pictures and some basic information, and you're off and running. Building your personal brand, right? Handle that with care, and that's what we're doing here with this digital footprint, like making a website, for example, a portfolio site. Managing your LinkedIn is another thing you can do, and obviously employers look at that as well. Now, over the years, have cultivated kind of quotations from people I've worked with and endorsements, which I think helps as well. So once you're underway, it doesn't hurt to cultivate a few of those. It's nice because they do see that as third-party sort of review of your work and who you are as a person. But it's your personal brand. And here's a quote: "Your personal brand is your responsibility. Never before has there ever been more of an opportunity to use technology, social media, and common sense to tell your professional story, stand up and stand out in an increasingly crowded digital space." So again, just be mindful of these data points, these areas where these touch points for your personal brand. Facebook could be one, certainly. LinkedIn is another. Any other place you're out there that you know that folks who might hire you will go to. All right, let's go through one slide here on LinkedIn. I want to just share the LinkedIn with you, some things you can do. There's ways to optimize your LinkedIn profile, right? So using keywords and a good picture, but really do a good job of creating sort of your that first impression. You can publish on LinkedIn as well. We'll talk about that using SlideShare. So that's one great way to bolster your expertise and to promote yourself within a certain category or concept or way of thinking. One example is copywriting, right? So if you've got opinions on copywriting and maybe you've written a paper on copywriting, you could use that paper, the things you've written about copywriting or whatever, and use that to publish that back out to the crowd. And what that does over time is builds equity around your understanding and skill set and people's view of you in a certain capacity. LinkedIn does that really well as well because people will endorse you in certain areas, and over time you'll get a lot of people who endorse you for said topic you want to be an expert in. SlideShare, that's another one we want to talk about. Create a LinkedIn SlideShare account, and that's great. Most people don't do this. I've done it, and I've got an example I'll show you in a second here of that. But people like to grab slides from LinkedIn SlideShare, and that's a great way to index your name on Google. LinkedIn also making meaningful connections. So let's say, for example, you're targeting a company, but you can't get them to respond to your resume. You could use LinkedIn Messenger and go direct to somebody you know who works there. Maybe you've got a tip from a friend, or maybe it's just a cold email. Either way, that if you ask them for a 10-minute informational, they're more than likely going to indulge you. And you've at least then made a connection with the company and someone who cares enough to at least talk to you. So you can use LinkedIn to reach out to folks and ask for those informationals, even if they're not hiring. You may find that at some point, if you impress them the right way, ask the right questions and things like that, they may hire you at the right time. All right, here's an example of being a thought leader. And I used SlideShare for something quite a few years ago. I used to work for a company called Pentair, and I was the vertical marketing manager for the pump division for that company. So big responsibility, and a part of my job here was new product development, and we were working on some rainwater stuff with another company called Watertronics right here in Heartland. So I partnered with this company, and we went to a presentation, and I actually published the slides on SlideShare, so I could make it easy for folks who attended my speech to get the slides, which they did in droves. So now if you type in my name in rainwater, up pops, all this information from SlideShare. So again, it's a way of building expertise in an area. Now, I don't think about rainwater much anymore because my job has changed. But, if I were to do this and I wanted to continue working with water in any capacity, this is one way to build equity around your own skill set through SlideShare. And by the way, the key point here is just the fact that it indexes well. Google looks for content like that. And if it's good content, especially now with the algorithms they use, your name's going to pop up there with the content you've created above others. All right, last couple slides here regarding the creative presentations. Thanks for your patience. So here we are, right? Last week coming up here. Your presentations are due Wednesday. They should be 7 to 10 minutes long. If you have folks, I know we're all quarantining right now, and maybe some of you don't have people, and I think kind of what you did last time with the book report is just fine. So the same setup again really is what we're after here. This time, though, we do have a little bit more going on with these presentations because you're pitching creative. So think about how you're going to do that, right? And invariably what you want to do is plan it out. But using PowerPoint is the easiest way for me to always do that. Let's say, for example, you're making a presentation and you're going to show the first one, which includes video content. So how do you do that, right? So there's a number of ways to do that. You can easily put a link into your slides and have that play while you're presenting. That's probably the easiest way to do that. What I don't want you to do is have files laying all over the place and then clicking off and clicking on things and just wasting time getting from one thing to the next. That's why I believe that PowerPoint does a really nice job of really collating and pulling everything together into one tight little unit. So as much as possible, you want to get that pulled together that way and then practice it, right? Make sure you're hitting that 7 to 10 minute mark and We work on those transitions, and it's like a presentation. So work out the details. You have till Wednesday here, and I know you guys are already hard at work on this, but the other piece here is if you have 4 folks, obviously I'm not going to hold you to that, but if you've got folks from your house that you're staying in now, make them part of your audience. And you want to show that they're there, and then, of course, make the pitch. Other important facts. Simulating a client creative presentation, each student will present at least 3 different campaign options. Now, you can make up one if you wish, and I've had students do that in the past as well. They've done such a good job of thinking about the brands. They've come up with their own campaigns, and often they're really awesome. So that's cool. If you're ambitious and you want to do that, go for it, I'd say. Now, you don't have to do that. Most students elect just to find campaigns from the past and make them their own. And when I say make them their own, they adopt a position that they are an account person making a pitch, and the stuff that they're using as concepts, they're pitching as real concepts, stuff that they just did with their creative team. So I'd like you to stay in character, right? You are an account person for Agency X. Let's say agency, your last name or whatever name you want to come up with for your agency, making the pitch to whatever brand you're pitching to. But I'd like you to stay in character and make these pitches as if they were creative ideas that came from your ideation and from your team. Campaigns must be real, right? Or at least mocked up campaigns for the chosen client. So what you'll want to do is you'll set them up first, right? Talk about the brand, what you learned about the brand, all the stuff we've done, right? The brand brief information. Who's the target audience? What's the special brand voice? What's the persona? All the stuff we've done this semester should be at the front end of that before you go into the details of your presentation. And then it's just as simple as looking at the ads you've picked, right? And stitching them back to the strategy and making those pitches like they were new creative. A little bit of suspension of disbelief there, obviously, and it's going to be campaigns and ideas that maybe are not synchronous. In other words, are not from the same decade even in some cases. As much as possible, try to keep them together. But I mean, I'm not going to look at that as much as your ability to stay in character and to present the creative in an intelligent way. So yeah, you can use YouTube TV ads, so you can do that. But again, make sure you got your technology kind of figured out there. One of the big problems is often, can you hear that? Is the recording loud enough? So you want to jack up your volume and then maybe test it once and see to make sure that when you record it, it sounds loud enough so people can hear it. But you can also do magazine ads and billboards and any one of a number of different things that you find and cover in your research, right? But it should tie back to the strategy. If you're targeting 18 to 24-year-olds, your ads should be consistent with that. So in chapter 3.5 in the Dickinson book, if you're really kind of curious as to know how this should be done, check that chapter out again. But it's a simple format, right? It's a setup, reveal, justification, discussion, and then close. Simple steps there. The setup is, of course, teasing them with information about their brand, and maybe it's an insight. Usually it starts with an insight of some kind into their brand. Using Snickers as an example, right? Snickers really satisfies. And that's kind of an insight from the Snickers bar itself, which is more of a dinner candy versus some other candy bars, right? It does satisfy. So that was a huge insight that they came back with for a campaign. So if Snickers is my brand, I would talk about that first. And then I would talk about the brand in more detail, stuff from the brand brief that you guys did. And then the reveal is really showing your ads. Here's ad number 1, explaining that concept and so on and so forth. And then at the end, it's more of a wrap and discussion, justifying kind of your pitch. And then the close is often saying, thank you. We look forward to working with you, that kind of thing. So again, it is meant to emulate a real pitch as much as possible. This portion is worth 75 points rather. Watch for those typos. And of course, like your book reports, I'd like you to give your presentations and then put your presentation deck underneath your reply. There should be a little paperclip there, and attach that underneath your video. The other piece of this here is peer reviews. Now you'll have till Friday this coming week here to get those in. That's worth 25 points, and you want to include everybody. Give everybody your kind of take on their presentations within the thread. And that's worth 25 points. So a total of 100 points altogether for everything. Okay? I think we've talked about this a number of times. I just want to make sure you guys are aware again what I'm looking for here. The last slide here for you guys. This will be my last video probably that I share with you guys for this class in this semester. I hope to see you guys face-to-face and on campus rather next semester. But here's my kind of word of advice to you guys. Set your course. Now's the time you should be thinking about your careers, right? And if you really like advertising or PR or anything else, and you've imagined yourself as an agency person, really embrace that, right? My key advice for you guys is to become a lifelong student of your discipline. So it doesn't mean it ends now because this class is over or about to be over. You should redouble your efforts and every day be thinking about, gosh, I'll be on Ad Age and other places, and always be curious about the next campaign or the campaigns you've seen, and make connections to things. That's going to serve you very well, especially as an account person. So, all right, that's all I got for this week here. Good luck with everything. I know we're wrapping up here quickly. I'm here for you 24/7 pretty much, so shoot me an email if you have any questions, and good luck with your final presentation preps.